Hi, if you are the leader of a tech SaaS business, you might want to hear this. A recent report by BenchSight SaaS Metrics showed that median SaaS growth has fallen to 17% in 2024. That is down from 35% plus growth between 2019 and 2021. There has not been, let's face facts, a post-COVID recovery. SaaS growth has remained totally flat for the last 3 years for many companies. And they put this down to three main things. And I'm just going to touch on those very, very quickly. Market saturation. We all know that's happening. A huge amount of what I would describe as tepid demand, but more importantly, inefficient go-to-market strategies. GTM strategies are not fit for purpose. My name's Reggie James. This is Perspectives, and today we're going to look at what you can do about this. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hey, welcome back. So, I was recently at SaaS Stock in London and got chatting to a chap who sat right next to me. I'm going to be meeting this week. We sparked up a conversation based on a question he asked me about go-to-market. And I said to him, if I asked everybody in the room, there's about 30, 40 people, about to listen to a talk from a very serious and very successful entrepreneur, which I'll tell you about a little bit later. But I said, if you asked everybody in the room what go-to-market was to them, you would get a completely different answer from every single one. And this is a big challenge right now. And of course, go-to-market has to be different for different organizations. But the big challenge is that people are trying to use a one-size-fits-all go-to-market strategy. A lot of people don't even know what a go-to-market strategy is. They have a concept of what go-to-market is. GTM is and has been changing over the years. One of the biggest things that I find is that there are smaller companies, smaller organizations who are under $5-10 million turnover, and they are using go-to-market strategies that are used by $100 million plus companies. And they are wondering why that's not working for them. Well, guess what? You're not going to win any new business or grow and scale your company if you do not have the right strategy for you. How do you get the right strategy? Well, you need to speak to someone who can actually guide you on what A, go-to-market actually is. B, do you actually need that right now? And C, it's not just about sales, it's about getting the infrastructure right. Because if you don't get that right, no matter how much you do, no matter how much you try and mold yourself around to a strategy that you might have found somewhere or ask ChatGPT to write for you, you're not going to move the dial. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. Go-to-market, is it fit for purpose in today's world? What does it mean? What is the history of it? And how did we get to where we are today? So at the beginning of this podcast, I actually said as an intro that there has been a huge decline in terms of, especially in the SaaS marketplace, a decline in sales, a huge decline over the last 4 years. And this has been challenging for so many companies. There's been no sort of post-COVID uplift. AI as a standalone solution that companies are adopting is not moving the dial. Hiring more salespeople is not going to move the dial. And actually, if you hire an agency or a third-party marketing individual or freelancer, they are not going to move the dial either. Because fundamentally, if you do not get the foundations right, no matter how much you spend, you can 10x your spending, you can 10x your activity, you're not going to increase revenue. You can only increase revenue if you get the basics right, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so let's start with part one. What is go-to-market? Go-to-market is a tactical action plan. It outlines how a company presents its products and services to the market to achieve a competitive advantage and meet its business objectives. So I'll say that again. A go-to-market strategy is a tactical action plan that outlines how a company will present its products and services in the market to achieve a competitive advantage and meet its business objectives. So let's just think about that for a second. It's not a marketing plan. It's not a sales plan. It is an overarching strategy that will give you a competitive advantage, not just trying to increase your annual recurring revenue. The byproduct of that is, if it's done right, will happen. So first of all, most companies, and listen to the things that I said there, do not actually know what their business objectives are. They have a goal, and that might be a revenue figure, but they don't know how to actually break that down, reverse engineer that, and reach that North Star. They do not know, or they have not taken the time and the energy to actually sit with someone and actually plan what the goal and objective is. Normally, companies will look at last year and say, right, let's add 10% to that. Or they'll look at 2 years ago and say, we had a really good year 2 years ago. Last year wasn't so good. Let's try and do another 25% growth on top of what we did. It's just not going to work. So you need to think about where you are right now. Where is your organization right this minute? Not what you think it is. Where is it right now? Because without understanding where you actually are, i.e. the resources you have, the team you have, the competitive, landscape that you're in, if you do not know exactly where you are going to struggle to actually get to where you want to get to. So first of all, you need to be grounded into exactly where you are. So how do you do that? How do you find out exactly where you are? Well, the first thing to do is to question the people within your organization. And let's break this down into small, medium, and large organizations. We are going to do a separate one on the enterprise, a separate podcast on that. So let's just look at small to medium businesses. We typically deal with companies anywhere between 5 to 10 million annual recurring revenue, or maybe a little bit smaller, who are looking to scale. And it's a completely different scenario on a go-to-market strategy if you are a startup. So let's put the startups to one side. If you want to know about startups, there's a link further down below, and you can look at go-to-market for startups. But the reality of go-to-market for companies looking to scale is they need to understand where they are. So how do you understand where you are? Well, the first thing to do is you need to get management into a room and say that you are going to fundamentally go back to basics and decide where you are right now. So that means asking the right questions to the right people. If you ask your management or your board, if there's 10 of you, or even if there's 5 of you, and get them to write down who the company is, what the role is within that company, what they believe their company actually does and who they service, and what the revenue targets are, that is one of the most eye-opening start points that you will get in any organization. Because I will guarantee you will get, if there's 5 people, you will get 5 or 6 different answers. If there's 10, you'll get 15 different answers. Because yes, understandably, people are at different stages and have different roles. But if there is no overarching common thread between understanding exactly what it is that your company does, who it does it for, why your potential customers should choose you, and what the value is that you actually add to that your prospective customers, then you've got a fundamental problem. These are very simple questions, but the simplest questions are the hardest to answer. And that's why only 20% of companies actually take the time and energy to actually answer those questions. The rest go round and round in circles, trying different things, doing campaigns on LinkedIn, or they start creating lots of fancy videos, thinking they should start using TikTok because everyone else is, or they read something somewhere in Fortune magazine or in Forbes or in the Financial Times, and they thought it was a brilliant idea. Let's do that. It is a spray and pray approach. You're just trying everything and getting nothing. And you go round and round in circles. You might have a good quarter, you might have a good half year or a year, but it's not sustainable. You are not going to grow. So you have to, number one, understand where you are. Number two, when you understand where you are, what are the next steps? So you've had a conversation with the board, you've sat down, management have actually said, okay, this is who we are, this is where we believe that we are. There's a bit of a bun fight, and everyone's talking about who they think they are and what they do and what the revenue targets are for the year. So probably the only constant that I find when I talk to companies is that they agree that there is a goal that they are going for, and that is purely based on revenue. I know this sounds very simplistic, but the reality of it is a lot of companies try and overcomplicate what actually is a very simplistic. It's simple, but it's not easy. Let's put it that way. So you may not have all the answers in terms of the value that you add, etc. So what you need to do is then start working on about 4 or 5 different areas. And we've got a framework for all of these. So if you're interested, let me know and I'll happily send those to you. But one of the first start points is you need to understand how the market has changed when you put your targets in place. So what worked a year ago, 18 months ago, ain't going to work now. And it's not going to work now because things have changed. Things changed back in 2020 when the world changed and everything shut down. The whole world shut down for what seemed like 2 years. But what happened during that time was that the buyer in the B2B marketplace, especially in technology, in SaaS, completely changed. The buyer is in control. And that means that when the buyer is in control, they are only active and actively shopping for your product or service, only 5% of them at any one time. So 95% of prospects are either not in market, they don't even know they've got a problem, they don't even know you exist. Those, as you move further along the chain, who do realize they have their problem, will then start doing some research. And that's when you might get some engagement from a potential prospect, and then they will ask you for their product or service. But what they're already doing is making up their mind in terms of who they're going to use. If you get a demo request, totally out the blue, it is either going to be one of two things. They have been looking and reading at your content, bearing in mind if you've been creating content and you've been educating the market on who you are. And there's ways of actually working out where you're going to be in that cycle. And again, this is something that we help our clients do and help them get a successful deal. We also help them to determine whether you're just going to be part of the beauty parade and help them filter out those companies that are just going to completely waste their time. They're tire kickers. You're just making up the numbers, the demos, the times, the presentations, the pitch decks, everything you put together for that client, it's a complete and utter waste of time because they're never going to buy for you. They've already chosen who they're going to buy from. What they're doing is just fishing, looking at numbers, looking at your interoperability, whether your technology, what other things they can offer, so that the company they want to buy from, they can negotiate something better with them. The buyer is in control. Rule number 1, the buyer is in control. So you have to nurture that buyer by doing a variety of different things. So what should you do to make sure that that buyer is going to be that 95 as they move along that funnel and they're ready to actually engage with you? What should you be doing right at the beginning? Well, firstly, you need to do a little bit of market research. Understand what's actually happened since over the last few months and years in terms of how people buy. If you're still using the same techniques, you're going to fail. Clearly define your ideal customer profile. And that's easier said than done. It is not one person, I'll tell you that now. It's not even 5 people. It could be a lot more. So don't confuse ideal customer profile with buying committees. They're 2 separate things, 2 different sides of the same coin. Okay, so that's what a lot of people get confused with. Number 3, what is your value proposition? How do you articulate the benefits and the value that your product or service is going to give to your ideal customer profile? Again, it sounds simple, but it's not easy. And most companies, though they try and do this, they stop They stop because it becomes very difficult, especially if they're doing it on their own. You need someone to hold your hand, guide you through it, give you specific frameworks to actually help you think about what you're doing. A lot of this is about shifting your mindset and actually creating something that's going to add value. Then you need to see that whether your product has got the right fit for your customer. So product market fit is the term that's used quite a lot. But what we're trying to do is make sure that our product and service is going to be right for the customers that we're looking to actually target. And then you need to look at what your offer actually is. How irresistible is your offer? How compelling is your offer compared to your competition? Why should someone buy you? And what is it that just makes it a no-brainer for them to say, I'm going to go for that, when they're evaluating everything, or when they're evaluating internally in their buying committees. And that buying committee could be one person, it could be 10 people, it could be 20 people. But it doesn't really matter. If you get the fundamentals right, then you will actually have the beginnings of a very strong prospect. Look at your distribution channels, look at your pricing strategy, look at your sales enablement. Now these are completely different topics and subjects in their own right, and we're going to be touching on all of these as we go through this process or go to market. You need to look at sales, how your sales work. What is a lead? What constitute? How do you qualify that lead? What have you got historically that you can look at? Do you lead score? What are the 7-point questions you should ask? What are the 30-point questions, depending on your products and service, that you should ask? We've worked with sales leaders, some of the best in the business, and they've given us strategies to help you align with probably the number one thing that drives a prospect to think of you before anyone else, and that is communication. Most communication drives sales, and communication is normally driven by marketing. Now, if your sales department are over here and your marketing's over here, and you're not talking to each other, you have got a major problem. And that problem is not going to go away until you align the two things together. I know you've heard it 1,000 times before, aligning sales and marketing, but it's imperative, and there's ways of actually doing that. And especially in the world of fractional CROs and CMOs and people trying to bridge that gap, they end up becoming, or sometimes can build, two separate empires. One of the things that we do is we try, because we look from the outside looking in, we can see where the bottlenecks are, and we can show you how to actually plug that gap, because without doing that, you're going to struggle. You're going to carry on with that cycle. So unless there's synergy between the two departments, you're going to really, really struggle. So marketing itself is a whole, it's a subject that I could talk to you for hours on end. We spent the last 22 decades plus building some of the most sophisticated marketing strategies, helping clients achieve well over 60% annual recurring revenue, over 100% annual recurring revenue on their sales by applying very sophisticated marketing techniques, which you need to do today. This is not as I say, it's not a spray and pray type of thing. We need to look at customer experience. What experience do your customers have of you? We need to look at advertising. We look at demand generation. All of these different things are important when putting together a go-to-market strategy. You also need to look at how you mitigate risk. Before you can accelerate any revenues, you've got to look at the risk and rewards. And then one of the final things, and this is not in order, is you need to look at market share, but also look at your brand. So brand is another topic that we're going to actually be talking about in isolation. So all these things are going to be in links as we go through this process in terms of talking about go-to-market. And a go-to-market strategy is going to be fit for 2025 and 2026 and beyond. And how you can adapt that is fluid enough, and you can sort of dial it up or dial it down as you move along that journey. Take stock of what I've said just now. There's going to be more links, there's going to be more content, but just some of those areas. If you're interested in learning more about this, drop me a direct message or click on the link below, and I'll be able to share some of those things with you and share some of the case studies that we've done and actually mold something very, very quickly for you. We're actually offering a little bit of free consultancy as well, where we can actually sit down with you, see where your challenges are, and immediately help you pivot that 5 or 6 degrees that's going to make all the difference. Sometimes that's all you need. So thanks for watching. Come back and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.